Thanks for watching Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Ken Ackerman. We're at the state capitol in Salem, where you hear a lot about PERS reform. In fact, we've been hearing about it for going on 17 years now, but more reform is on the horizon in the not too distant future. Please welcome Tim Knopp, Oregon State Senator. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And would you talk PERS with us? Because I'm steaming mad because we just spoke and you told me about something I wasn't aware of, a spiff of sorts for those who get PERS who choose to live out of state.
Yeah, so what happens when somebody retires is the state gives them the equivalent of what they would pay in their income taxes in addition to their retirement. So it's essentially 9%. Well, what happens when they move out of state is they continue to get the 9%. So in other words, Oregonians are giving them their tax money, they're not paying taxes anymore in Oregon, and they're living somewhere else. And this has been going on for years, and it costs the state budget between $55 and $70 million each biennium. And so you add that up over a decade or so, and you're talking about significant amounts of money that could have been invested elsewhere in education and human services or corrections, and we've just been giving it to non-residents.
So we're giving them 9% above their
retirement
benefits.
Yep.
To pay taxes, but they don't have to because they live out of state.
Exactly.
Nice, nice. You're going to introduce a bill, and sticking with PERS here, to remove legislators from PERS. Now, is this more of a PR move? Do you ever see anything like this happening?
I think it will happen. I believe that if it doesn't happen this session, that there will be a movement of the people to put it on the ballot. And so I've just encouraged legislators, let's vote for it here. Let's take care of it now. Let's save the public the time and the campaign because you don't want to run in 2014 knowing that you weren't in favor of taking yourself or stopping legislators from getting into PERS in the first place, which is, I think, more likely what's going to happen. Because in 1975, so before that, legislators weren't in PERS, judges weren't in PERS, and the public had somebody that was without conflict and was essentially a neutral party that could represent the people. Well, the people no longer have anybody that can represent them because everybody is in PERS that has a decision in this system, from the people who draft the bills, from the committee folks who serve in this building, to the legislators, to the governor, to the justices in the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals that ultimately decide these cases. So everybody, and the Attorney General who would argue the cases. So there's total conflict of interest everywhere.
Right.
I believe the citizens of Oregon are tired of it, and I think they're going to remove it if the legislators don't. And that's why I'm confident that we're going to make progress on that issue.
You did make progress back in 2003.
We did. We came really close. We passed it out of the House, and at that time it was to pull sitting legislators out of PERS, and it was very controversial. And the courts have essentially said you can't take away a benefit of someone who's currently in the system. And so, in other words, you can't stop them. And so ultimately what we need to do is prospectively do this, and over a 10-year period you will essentially cycle out nearly 90% of legislators, and so you won't have that problem as it relates to legislators. And some have suggested, well, what about state elected officials, and what about justices? And I think the legislature needs to lead by example, and that's why I put the bill in. Great news is I've got 15 sponsors in the Senate and 24 sponsors in the House, and we need 16 and 31. So we're looking to the people to say, call your senator and your representative and say, hey, it's time to do the right thing.
I know you represent Bend and that area, deep in a depression. How are you going to get them out?
Well, it's all about jobs, and so we need to make sure that we're creating private sector jobs and that the legislature is helping in that effort through land use and tax policy.
Very good. That was quick, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tim Knopp, Senator, and thank you for joining us on Comcast Newsmakers.